Okay. So continuing to where we are to date, one of the gentlemen that used to come to court to support the very same person who has now been convicted for assault GBH and calling me the K word, has also been found guilty last month for blocking water coming from my yard, passing through his yard. He does not want to have water coming from a black man's yard, crossing over into his yard. And he pointed me with a firearm. He's just been found guilty. His sentencing is coming up on the 21st of October this month. So I've been continuously been part of racism. I've been subjected to racism now in Hartbeespoort. Now, I now have a business similar to that of Tabiso. I applied duly for the business. I applied for the necessary licenses for compliance and all that. Grobler here, after I've advertised on the government gazette for objections and everything, I submitted my liquor license application at the Hartbeespoort police station. A white police officer, Warrant Officer Jacobs, sent an email to Grobler, and Grobler, 2 hours after I've submitted my application, wrote on an email, "We have just been informed that Legacy on the Dam has applied for liquor license. Please object." They mounted 272 objections against my liquor license. In the same week, a white business applied for a license, Beach Bar and Grill, owned by Sneyman, who's a white guy. And on a fraudulent application where he made a lease from himself to himself for R1 for a year on a government land, they supported that application. Mine, they opposed because it's a black person. And they continued on that. They wrote an open letter on, once again, an Afrikaans newspaper. No comment was required from me, and they complained that I'm selling alcohol to the public. My liquor license allows me to sell alcohol to the public. Who must I sell to? Beach Bar and Grill, on a fraudulent liquor application, it sells alcohol to the public, no problem with it. I'm in possession of a letter written by some attorneys in Pretoria that claims to be representing 13 signatory estates that says my boat makes noise in the dam. My boat is a 35-seater. Nico, who's a white guy, has a boat that carries 300 people with a speaker as bigger than this banner. No noise about, no complaints about Nico. My boat has been sitting on the shoreline for the last 2 months. And now they say my boat is making noise.
All right. Mr. Ngoato, I think you've said a mouthful. Let's allow the Kosmos Village Association to respond to these accusations. I don't know whether it's Daan or Cheryl who's going to respond.
Yes, maybe I want to start off by just explaining our involvement from a Kosmos Village Association point of view. Our involvement is twofold. We are one of the waterfront communities who are affected by noise created by Legacy and many other businesses around the dam, including the party boats. You know, secondly, I think we've got a vested interest in, you know, future businesses that will also potentially create noise and disturbance. And of course, as a community, we don't want that. We have invested in this community, in this area, because of peace and tranquility and the nature and the beautiful dam. That is why we are here, not to be exposed to other businesses' noise the whole time. Now, I can speak on behalf of the Kosmos Village, but we have started to lodge a complaint, Kosmos Village, and 10 other waterfront communities around the dam as well, because of the noise, because it's not only us that is affected. So you must understand, noise travels across water. You know, when Oberon has a big event on, we also get noise disturbance, and that's 4 kilometers away. But it is as if that noise is in your sitting room because it travels across the water. Now, there are other waterfront communities that are more directly opposite legacy than what we are, that is much more worstly impacted on than what we are. And therefore they've joined us. I can't talk on their behalf, but we are coordinating the complaint initiative on behalf of 11 waterfront communities. And our complaint has got purely to do with noise and disturbance and nothing else. There's nothing whatsoever that is racial about it.
Liquor licenses, do you get involved there? And if so, were you directly involved in blocking a license for him to sell liquor?
So you must understand, if there is a entity like Legacy, and I must point out that it is right next to one of the waterfront estates, it shouldn't be in that position. But then also there isn't a position around the dam that would be suitable for any business of that nature. But of course, when there's noise and disturbance, you ask the question, have they got a legal license? That's why we've approached the department and we said, have they got a lease? And what are you going to do about your tenant that is causing disruption? And many of the residents of some of the other estates have lodged complaints and have contacted Legacy. But there has been no letdown in the disturbance. You know, he's mentioned Niku. Now, Niku has got a party boat, and we often lodge complaints with Niku about his noise and his disturbance, but at least Niku listens, and do something about it.
And Mr. Ngoato doesn't.
Well, I haven't contacted him personally, but since we've lodged a complaint, there hasn't been any change in the behavior of Legacy.
Let's, in the interest of a plurality of voices, let's get Cheryl's voice in there as well. Cheryl, listening to this conversation tonight, it would seem that black-owned establishments feel that they're being targeted and white establishments are allowed to break the rules and regulations as they see fit. He's not the first complainant. There was Thabiso a little earlier who says noise pollution comes from everybody else. There are festivals that are held, it's an all-nighter. And it would seem that those people are not punished. Is there a racial profiling of sorts?
Thank you very much. Absolutely not. It has absolutely nothing to do with race. I hear what's been said by others, that they have been targeted racially. This is something that we are not aware of. Our complaint, as Daan has just said, is absolutely to do with the noise and disturbance, the nuisance which is created, which I have to, in a way, almost agree with what was said earlier, that I think you said to the Deputy Minister, that in many ways it may be their fault. They are obviously allowing people like Hartley and Thabiso and others to have events venues which may be inappropriate in the area that they are situated, may be inappropriate because there are no parameters apparently. I don't know whether any parameters have been given to the people who are leasing properties to run their businesses. But there must surely be an appropriate way to run them, or a responsible way from the department's perspective of considering all the other people and estates that are well established around the dam. People have invested their lives into these estates. This is where they live, this is where they function. Yeah. But at the moment, their lives are being turned upside down by the noise nuisance, which is very severe. We're not talking, about a little bit of extra noise perhaps for an hour or two. We are talking about very serious disruption.
Mr. Baloyi, let's come to you. You have been physically at our studios complaining about the exact same issues that have been spoken about here tonight. Put differently to you, someone listening tonight, can they take your word for it that you as black businesses are being targeted? Or do you believe that this simply has to do with the noise pollution and there's nothing more to it?
Thanks very much and greetings to the listeners at home. I think to me it's shocking. I can't even believe what they are saying here today. But I think for starters, it's important that we establish some common ground if we are to have useful discussion tonight. Most importantly, we need to understand that the Kosmos village establishment that they are representing, what is it all about?
Yeah.
In the main, it's all about maintaining white people's control over that area. Their entity, as we speak right now, there's an informal settlement called Orange Farm. It's just next to them. It's equally occupying illegally government land, just like many white people who are occupying government land illegally. They're not being disturbed, but their entity has taken it upon themselves to go to court to challenge that informal settlement to move out. And those people are human beings. They deserve to be there. They have their own reasons why they are there. And government has a responsibility to see to it that they find them an alternative place. But if that's where they are, because they are closer to work, because they are working in the very same estate where they are staying. These are their workers, but they are busy evicting them. The second thing that is of a critical challenge to me, more so because even in my own business and my other interests, I am an environmentalist. I care about the environment. And I think we cannot go and promote the notion that begin to say air pollution is the biggest environmental problem. If you go to the dam right now, tomorrow morning, the water level is very low. If everybody that has been speaking is really concerned about the environment, they will be going to the dam to collect the litter, the bottles, the plastics that are lying all over. It's very dirty, the dam, let alone the water quality of the dam. If the environment, it is an issue. Those are the key issues that they can be looking at. But what we are experiencing here, in all fairness, it's a case of racism. I'm sure, Xoli, you might have experienced, if not seen, other cases of estate agents involved in cases of racism. Because for some reasons, I think government must be coming on board seriously to begin to regulate the behavior of estate agents. Because in all fairness, as a country, it's about time we begin to see to it that we can't have a group of people who, in most cases, always this white female who wants to speculate on the issue of the property prices decreasing, just so that they can make an extra money at the expense of other people who want to enjoy the place. And I think what colleagues need to appreciate here is that Hartbeespoort, that is the reality, is growing. Mm-hmm. Urbanization is a reality. As more people come here like myself, we realize all these opportunities that we want to take advantage of. Yeah. And as South African, we are allowed to relocate, and the laws are not permanent. They can be amended or relaxed to better respond to the changing needs.
Okay. Let's come back to you, Mr. Ngoato. We accept, I think as a community, that government is not playing their role. People are setting up shop where they see fit. Those who have power to go to court, they're able to go there and force their way or defend themselves, much the same way that you've done whenever there was trouble coming your way. You've even had people convicted and sent to jail for criminality, because that was criminal, what they were doing. But let's also then try and see if we can resolve this as a community. So let's leave noise pollution for a moment. Let me ask you about what the rules and regulations say about setting up a business on the dam shoreline. What do the rules say about that? And do you think that that is something that can be adhered to or is being adhered to by everyone?
No, it's not adhered to by everyone. From on the right, on my business, it's all on the right and the left. It's all white establishment that have not complied with the very first one, the right to occupy that piece of land. None of them can even begin to say they have occupied that. I listened earlier on when Mr. Rodenbach was talking about that they must go for tender processes, right? There is no such tender process. This is not a supply chain management process. We're not supplying tissues and shoes. This is lease of land, right? Now, I'll give you an example. HBK, which is the Hartbeespoort Club next to me, that I almost share a gate with, has been in occupation of that land for more than 4 decades. There's no tender process. Next to them, you go to Marina's Club. Marina's Cafe. It's not a government land. They've been there for 5 decades. There's no tender process. You come to Transvalia Club. Now they've leased out even government land to a Portuguese naval restaurant. They've been there for more than 6 decades. There is no tender process. But when it comes to us, they're saying we must go for tender process for 36 months. So they want to have 6 decades, we must have 36 months. They say must go for tender process. Why have they not been going for tender process? The Deputy Minister just told you that all the 99-year leases have been cancelled. They're supposed to be 9 years and 11 months to be specific. That is in terms of the lease policy that has just been recently adopted in 2022 of DWS. Now, if you look back to all white occupants, they have been there for more than 9 months, 11 months, meaning that whatever they've occupied have long expired. So they need to leave. Now, Russell made mention of something, that there are some people who are estate agents. Cheryl Grobler is an estate agent of Ethel Volker, right? The premises or the estate behind me is Caribbean Beach. After I used to have a meeting with their management or their board. We did not agree on certain aspects because of the insults that I was getting from their residents. I put up a net. By putting up that net, I am told that the value of those houses then dropped because of I wanted to protect the integrity and the peace of my people. Now, as a result, Sherry is now on the loose end because he can't sell for 2.9 million. He now has to sell for 1.2 million. And that is why he's running an organization called the Kosmos Village Association. It's not about that. It's about her interest as an estate agent that she can no longer sell at the amount that she was selling up. And she will not come out clean and tell you what she does. She said she's a member of KVA and a businesswoman. But what's her business?
All right. Let's get the response. Shirley, lots of accusations here tonight.
There's so many things that have been said that are really not true at all. Unfortunately, I think Hartley has just pretty much said that the values of properties have dropped because you've just said that they've gone from 2.9 to 1.2, was it? But nonetheless, that is actually not, I have no idea what the arrangements are at the estate that is behind you and nets and things. I'm afraid that I know nothing about. So I can't actually comment on that at all. What I will say is that yeah, I am an estate agent for sure, but that's got nothing to do with anything. The reality is that I think we also need to know that in the past few decades, there has been a great diversification in the people and the numbers of people that have been purchasing in the whole Harties area, not just in Kosmos or close by to any of the venues. And of course, these people, whatever they are, black, white, whoever they are also objecting to the fact that their values may be affected, their lifestyle is affected. You know, it's all very well to talk about values. We're not here at the moment talking about values. At the moment, we're here talking about the fact that people didn't buy into this. They did not buy into this enormous noise nuisance, which is being created, and without any effort, apparently, to try and accommodate people for kilometres around where the venues are situated. And that is what we are here for. We are not, there's nothing, it's got nothing to do with racism. It doesn't matter who owns the venues. It's got nothing to do with anything. We complain where required on a very even-handed basis. If people operate their venues in a way which is not disturbing to the rest of the dam area and all the other estates and people that live there, great. But unfortunately, that's not what happens.
All right. On that note, Daan, you're going to come in a moment. We need to take a break. But what I would like for us to do when we return is perhaps try and talk about whether there is a way to coexist. The Deputy Minister put it plainly, that people must learn to live with one another. We are one nation. And perhaps that's where this conversation ought to gravitate towards. When we return, we continue in a moment. You're watching News at Prime. If you're just joining us, we are in a deep discussion, and this is about a community that is at each other's throats. Some are claiming that there is racism. Others are saying there is no such thing as racism within the community. It's simply about managing noise pollution when it comes to those that have set up establishments. And so tonight, as we taper down this conversation, we're going to try and see if we can drive the message home about coexisting. The Deputy Minister put it very plainly, that people have got to learn to coexist. And so perhaps that's where we've got to pick up. But Daan, you wanted to add to the previous point that was made in order to not prejudice you. So I'll allow you to make your point, and then we move the conversation forward.
Yeah, thank you very much. I wanted to add that I think the insinuation is being made that the waterfront estates are white-owned estates. And I can talk for Kosmos Village. Cosmos Village, the demographics have been changing, and it's changing quite quickly. And today, we have 15% of homeowners in Cosmos Village are black homeowners. And those black homeowners are as unhappy as the other homeowners about the noise pollution that they are exposed to. So this impression that it is white-owned, and I'm 100% sure that the other waterfront estates and Caribbean probably have similar demographics at this point in time. Yeah. And it's changing fast, and it's going to change, the ratio is going to change further.
Hartley, how do you respond to that the demographic composition of some of the areas here is fast becoming black? And so where then does this racism fit into the picture? Or is it perhaps being used to get attention, first of all, of people like us, the media, and then, of course, rally the community around you as victims? Are you able to ameliorate your behavior in terms of noise pollution? Is it something that you think can be done? Or you think they really pushing it?
I'll be very clear. I'm not in the business of making noise. What do I get out of making noise? Is there any person who is in his senses can just make noise for the sake of making noise? I don't do noise. But let me tell you where the real issue is, right? And if then that's where they're unable to coexist. When people like Sherry sell houses to unsuspecting clients, they tell them you are buying in a golf estate. But they do not tell them that the golf estate is built on a stolen land, government land, illegally occupied. So you buy a house. And then the next thing you realize after your house, you are buying the house, that no, this house is as ordinary as the house in Acacia, because the land that they have built a golf course on it is not their land. And yes, everybody will be aggrieved. Now they want to turn that against us because they did not tell the people the truth, that they have built on the shoreline. They've built harbors on the shoreline. They've built golf courses on the shoreline and attracted clients to say, come, it's a real estate. You've got an access to a harbor. But they didn't tell their people. Together with the banks, they lied to the people when they bought. Now everybody will be angry, of course.
On that point, Hartley, I'd like to challenge you a little bit. You're saying that these estates are built on land that was acquired illegally, possibly stolen, is the word you use. Banks are in on it as well. Why would banks allow themselves to get involved in financing someone who's going to buy a property on stolen land? That is counterproductive for them. unless I'm completely wrong.
I agree with you, because banks are supposed to do due diligence when a person comes and say, we are selling house in a golf estate, to check, as indeed truly so, they have the ownership of that land where the golf course is built.
Yeah.
I don't know how it happened in Hartbeespoort. Mahalis Park, same thing. Caribbean, same thing. Many other estates, they've built on that one, and people have bought. You must look in terms of how they advertise.
Why is government not doing anything about it?
Our government is so much asleep, unfortunately. A lot of land has been stolen right under the eye of our government. People have built farms on government land. They even write so proudly, preferred endom, private land, do not enter, knowing very well it's not their land. You will not even send a labor inspector to go and check labor rights in that particular farm.
Daan, do you want to come in?
Look, we had a meeting with DWS when we started off with this complaint to try and motivate them to take some action. They informed us that there were 5 valid leases issued around the dam. Now, I don't know all 5 of them, but they told us that Caribbean Beach Golf Club is one of the leases. You know, so I'm not sure where Hartley is getting his information from.
Yeah.
And I just want to add to that, you know, I think there's nothing wrong if the department lease a piece of land to a business like Caribbean and allow them to build a golf course on it. What is wrong with that? As long as they then get a fair compensation for their lease, it's a win-win for everybody. The residents of Caribbean benefits. People can come from the outside and play golf at Caribbean. What is wrong with a golf course? At least the golf course is a responsible investment next to the dam. It doesn't create noise disturbance. You know, it doesn't bother anybody else living next to the golf course.
All right. Quick response before we go to Sherry and Mr. Baloyi.
Unfortunately, Daan, that's incorrect. I have it in writing, and like I said, I've met with the board of Caribbean, where they were even asking me, how did we get your lease? Can you help us to get your lease? I have it in writing. Now, where did they get it? Because hardly a year ago, they never had one. And they were saying to me, you know, we have been trying to get this thing and we have not. They were even asking me, can you make a motivation and support us so that we can build up a wall here? So if Caribbean suddenly now has a lease, because they told me they have not even paid 1 cent in the last 40 years. In Rand, nothing.
You have the financial muscle. You've demonstrated. I think you've got 2 people who've now been convicted for wrongdoing that they did to you. Have you considered going to court to say, this property, I suspect, is built illegally? I would like to challenge that through legal means in order to have it demolished.
Well, suspect is just a nice way to say we suspect. We know for a fact and we have records. But anyway, we'll prove that, not so that it can move from being suspect to a fact. It is the government that has to be able to do it. I'm a private person. My money is to take my kids to school, not to fight the government's battles. But when they attack me, for sure, I'll fight back, and I'm not going to leave it.
Sherry, we're moving the conversation forward now. Let's go back to that word that was used earlier, coexistence.
Yes.
I want to ask it differently. Do you remember a law back in the apartheid years? It was called separate development. Mm-hmm. Does anyone in this room, even the ones in the audience, still believe in that way of living, separate development? We've moved past that.
Not. I mean, of course not. I mean, we've moved on and we continue to move on. But I think if we're going to coexist, people cannot try and coexist at other people's expense. We must coexist. That's the word, coexist. Not, well, I want to run a noisy business and you must put up with it. Or the other way around, we don't like your particular kind of business. It's not that at all. I don't think anybody would object to any business if it was not disturbing their way of life. I mean, they've bought into an estate. Doesn't matter which estate. There are numerous estates that are affected by this noise. It carries for kilometres, as Daan said earlier. And I think the reality is as well that DWS, if they're going to be giving leases or allowing people to operate businesses from their properties, they must be responsible enough to say this would be a suitable business. These are the parameters we expect you as the business operator to follow in order that you can run a successful business, and you're not going to do it at the expense of other people that have invested in nearby estates. I think that would be fair enough, and I think everybody would be happy with that if they felt they were not being impacted on by somebody running a business there.
All right.
That's all we need.
Russell, coexistence. How do you think this community can achieve that? Because fighting is not going to help the situation. I don't need to remind all of us in this room the history we come from as a country. And so coexistence is what the founders of this democracy sought to build when we moved on in 1994. How do we learn to coexist?
Now, fortunately, I'm one of the people who did my bit in ensuring that there's a peaceful transition. And I do believe in the Rainbow project that was started by Mandela and de Klerk. I fully subscribe to that. We're a constitutional democracy. Coming into here in Hartley, I think for starters, you have role model like Peter, who is the former mayor of Hartley. He did tell you about his organization.
Yeah.
His organization, one of the key founding principles of his organization.
Okay, can I ask you to just pull the mic closer to you? Yes.
One of the core purposes of his organization is to drive an agenda that seeks to remove Hartbeespoort from Madibeng municipality broadly. Okay. Now, if you analyze his logic and his thinking, you find a very disturbing trend.
You're talking about Peter Rottenbach, who was sitting here.
Yes, that was sitting here.
Okay.
If you analyze his documentation, he identifies workers and black communities as stakeholders. You know, and for me, that kind of identification is something else. Workers and black communities, what is he trying to say? But silently, what he's not saying there is that racism element that we're talking about, that not all black people that is here is a worker or a black community, because they are used to black community, black workers who can be foreigners who are working for them cheaply. They are not used to black people like ourselves, who have our own ambition and vision. Our ancestors and others who came before us have given us a foresight to think for ourselves. We don't know the idea of working for anybody. We have ambitions. So if they can just accommodate that. But it's interesting how they accommodate it. They do say there to say, look, he takes actually pride that he has done a lot in terms of identifying upper blacks who can come in to relocate here in Hartbeespoort. So this thing of you are better black, and you do have black people who find pride if white people tell them that you are better black, you are not like Baloyi. You know, for us, for some of us, it's an insult because we don't need anybody's endorsement. We are happy with ourselves. We are clear with what we want to do. And we understand that there are people who are black who are just looking for a job. Government must help them to get a job. But there are people like ourselves who are ambitious. We see an opportunity next to the dam, and we want to create sustainable business.
All right. I think we're going to have to invite Peter back, because he's still in the room, to respond to that. But before I move on from you, you are saying that he has been running a project to remove Hartbeespoort away from Madibeng Municipality. What do you think the purpose of that is?
No, you can see the essence of his argument. If you analyze that document, because that's what I've done for the good part of my life. If you analyze that document, you can see there's a silent message that we are now under the control of these blacks who are incompetent and all of that. Anyway, I'm not here to defend a government department or a municipality. There is some element of incompetence. But if you analyze that document, you can see that it's not just that. It's just about them having to maintain control over Hartbeespoort Dam. And unfortunately, if you are a mayor or a constitutional democrat, of which you have your 1 term or 2 terms, and people must go to election and elect and be elected. And if you're not elected, it means it's over. And it can't be that he has ambition to be a mayor for life. It can't be.
All right. Thank you very much. And on that point, what we are going to do now is take a break, but I'm going to try and reshuffle this panel because I think Peter would want to come and respond for himself to whatever that he is trying to do for this community. But very briefly, you haven't spoken in a while. This issue, this agenda, at least the one I'm driving, of coexistence. Do you believe that that's achievable here? Very briefly, please.
It is achievable if people can change their attitude. And maybe they extend what Russell was supposed to say to you. This agenda driven by Peter Rothenberg is to create the second Orania in Hartbees. The truth of the matter is, ever since the ANC took over government, ANC has never won the awards in Hartbees. They've always remained African awards. So this whole issue of trying to take Hartbees out of Madibeng is to create the second Orania. And they know they're going to be able to try to achieve it through DWS, because even the main Orania itself is based on the DWS land.
Which party is voted for in majority?
It's DA.
In the majority here.
It's DA. ANC has never won these awards ever since 1994. So that's why the whole aspect of saying we're trying to move away from Madibeng. Yes, Madibeng could have been incompetent in certain aspects in terms of their administration, but we can see the long-term objective for what they're trying to achieve.
All right. Let's take a break, and when we return, we're going to close the conversation. You're watching News at Prime, and if you're just joining us, we're wrapping up a conversation around a conflict that has gripped this community of Hartbeespoort for some time, and tonight we're trying to get to grips with it, and more importantly, trying to find solutions to it. All right, welcoming back to this panel is Peter Rothenberg, a man who was previously a mayor of this community, but now you're part of the HIF, that's the forum within this community. How do you respond to the man sitting right next to you, that your agenda is to try and take away this community from Madibeng, and yes, there could be elements of incompetency within that municipality. That is something that is, I think, is spread across South Africa. But what is your real agenda there?
The real agenda is that we are making a contribution of about 52 million rand per month to Madibeng. And as far as capital projects is concerned, since 2000, none has been spent for capital projects in our Hartbeespoort area.
So where is that money going? Back to Treasury?
That's, you must ask Madibeng, who is one of the most corrupt municipalities in South Africa, and the minister said it recently as well. So I don't know where that money went. We had negotiations recently with the municipal, the acting municipal manager. The next moment, when we were quite impressed with her, the next moment she was arrested.
Yeah.
So that is the problem. But the reason for the demarcation is, and we had a big support from the black community, massive support from the black community. We had a meeting in the hall, and there was, I would say, about 300 to 500 black people in there, and they were all support. When we appeared in front of the demarcation board, there was a whole panel present from the black community who was in support during the hearing that took place. But the main issue is that we are making a contribution from this community to Madibeng in a bottomless pit. So that is the main issue why we want, because we can uplift Sunway, like we did. Let me just conclude this.
Yeah.
Sunway, for instance, and that was another thing about the race issue about Skommersville. It was the Afrikaners from Skommersville who approached AfriForum and asked them, please help us to electrify Sunway, because there was 2 people killed because of illegal electrical connections. And Maribeng did nothing to restore that and to remove the illegal connections and to electrify Sunway.
Okay.
We went, let me just conclude then, we went to, I have to get one hit in.
2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. We had to go to court. Po was also there. Ramagopa was the mayor at that stage. Mr. Ramagopa was the mayor. He opposed us.
The one who's the minister now?
Yes, he opposed us in the electrification from Sunway and the removal of the electrical connections, but we won.
Okay, all right. Daan, very quickly, please.
Yes, just returning to your previous question and comment. You know, what do we need to do to coexist? You know, I don't think it's so much a matter of coexistence. I think it's just a matter of mutual respect. You know, I believe we should be inclusive. You know, we had a letter to the DWS because they also published an expression of interest. That expression of interest is to invite people to apply for further leases around the dam. It's a one sentence. It just says, give us an innovative proposal for recreational and tourist venues that you want to put up. That cannot work. You cannot run a complex situation like this. You need the department and government to develop a proper development plan. And then there must be a fair process of awarding, you know, those leases. But also together with that, it's not just the lease. The business must follow the same principles than any other business. There must be environmental impact assessments done. There must be consultations with affected and interested parties.
Sure.
And none of that has happened.
Okay. I'm sorry to rush you. Sir, it is your time. You have the final word tonight.
Unfortunately, what you're hearing here is not what's happening. It's not the truth. There's a school in Schoemansville called General Hendrik Schoeman, right? They don't have an English medium. So black kids coming from Sunway cannot come and attend school here. So this project that is talking about, what's the point of putting electrification on excluding your child from attending school, government school?
Gentlemen, thank you very much for participating in this panel discussion. For me, this has been very engaging, but also educational. It's important that we learn to live with each other. And if we can achieve that, I think Madiba would rest easy. So please, let's try and achieve that, all of us, as a unit. Masakekana, that's the moral of the story. I am trying my best to thrive in this community. I don't know whether I have Madiba's wisdom here, but I think the community is agreed that coexistence is the way to go. Otherwise, things are going to go pear-shaped. Let me hand it back to you.